Good evening, everyone. Hello, good day.
Good evening.
Hello.
So, welcome to a Wine Affair podcast, everyone. Good evening or good morning, wherever you are. Tonight we're super excited. We have a special guest tonight and a friend of mine, Russ Lorber, who's the owner of Wide Roots. And we're going to learn all about the importing of wine. And he's going to break it down for us. And we're going to get into that. So welcome, Russ.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we get into it, of course, we always say, what are we pouring?
What's in the bottle tonight to the glass?
All right. Who starts?
Go for it. Tell us, give us why did you pick this grape? We all kind of found the similar one from your suggestions.
Great. So I'm going to start. So I picked the Cannonau. Cannonau is a grape from the island of Sardinia. It's it's the second biggest island in Italy. It's to the west of the peninsula, sort of between the Italian peninsula and Tunisia. I have two in my glass. I have what you would see as the standard Cannonau, which is the red wine form from a producer that I work with in Sardinia, Aldaria. This is their Cannonau Rosso, but I also have a bonus. And the bonus is the rosé of the Cannonau. So I have two glasses in front of me. I have a rosé and I have a red. And they're made from the exact same grape by the exact same producer, but one is a rosé and one is a red. Why I picked Cannonau, I love if you spend any amount of time with me at all, you come to learn very quickly that Sardinia is one of my favorite places in the world. We can talk about why as we kind of go through this. But Cannonau is it's an interesting grape. It's linked to a lot of the great traditions of the island of Sardinia. It's genetically the same as Grenache, or Garnacha from Spain. And everybody fights over where it originated. The Spanish claim that it originated as Garnacha in Spain. In Sardinia, they claim that it originated there. They seem to have some evidence that backs up their claim that it really originated there. But regardless of where it originated, like other grapes that you grow in different places, the wines that you make take on the sort of properties of where it comes from, and that's what I find really interesting about wines that come from Europe, where they're produced in a style that really is meant to bring out the soil, the climate of that particular location. And so I'm looking forward to your reactions and how you experienced the Cannonau this evening.
I'm really loving it. First of all, I like that it's so light. And this is one varietal that's supposed to be higher in antioxidants, right?
Yeah, so the story, one of the other interesting stories, just to go a little bit deeper, the island of Sardinia is one of 5 locations in the world that's known as a blue zone. Mm-hmm. And the blue zones there was somebody who did a study about this, and you can find out about it online. But there are 5 locations in the world that have the highest concentration of centenarians in the world, or people who live past 100. And Sardinia is one. Okinawa in Japan is one. There's a Greek island called Ikaria, I think, that's one. A place in Costa Rica, and then an enclave in California. And the common denominator among all of these locations about the lifestyle is that, with the exception of the enclave in California because they don't drink alcohol, but all of these areas have there's a high amount of social interaction, the importance of linkages with family and friends, active lifestyles where you're getting out and doing things a lot, and then a healthy diet, but then also a moderate consumption of alcohol. And so Cannonau in Sardinia some people will link it to the blue zone because it has a relatively high level of antioxidants in the grape skins that may or may not have some influence on health. And there hasn't been a scientific study that's really, I think there have been some studies that show there's an effect and others that show maybe it's just alcohol in general I will tell you my own experiences having been to Sardinia is it's a lot more than the wine that you drink there. It is literally the culture that you're in because it is a very low stress culture. You're in one of the most beautiful places in the world with some of the best food in the world and the best wine in the world, and and there's truly this tradition of celebration and being with other people, and I think that whole sort of macro picture is what contributes to the blue zone. So went off there on a little bit, but that's I think one of the other points of interest for me, at least with the Canonau, is the whole linkage, like its piece in this cultural aspect of the island of Sardinia.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. I wish I knew that when I was shopping because it was fun to see. I looked around at a couple of wine shops around me, found one well priced at like $15 to $16 a bottle. Mm-hmm. And then was also kind of doing some local shops and some tours in different neighborhoods around me. And there was an Italian little bistro. So I was like, perfect. Let's see if they have anything. And they kind of had their wines like mapped out. And I thought of you because they did have a Sardinia wine. I just like passed right over it just because you see the bigger regions you're familiar with. And so I was looking for Sardinia and didn't see it. And then when I saw it highlighted on the map, I found this Canonau di Sardinia.
Sardinia. Mm-hmm.
And
Sella
this...
Mosca. It's Sella Mosca, right? Yeah. That's the first one that I ever tried was the Sella Mosca Canonau. That was how I discovered this grape.
And it is like I can taste the difference. I can taste the earth. I can like it's truly. I love Italian and Greek wines because they have that like easy drinking summer flexibility for more of their coastal products. And this being the Reserva, it's so nice. And it was just fun hearing you talk about like all of the different components into helping people live longer, what you eat, what you drink, what you're surrounded with. And that is so true. We were teasing because it was like a full local weekend and we did the farmers market and some Griffin, Georgia farms that are here locally. And you can like taste the difference. And so we just threw together a heated meal with like fresh tomatoes, fresh local cheese, and a few other fresh local, like literally the basil looked like it was just pulled out of the ground. But it added such fresher ingredients. And it's like, I already ate dinner, but I feel light and fresh and fun. Where I feel like that, to me, thinking of living on an island or living with different people in Sardinia, Italy, like if I ate what I just ate, like I want to go out for a walk or go do some physical activity that would keep me young and limber and, active. So I can see that because neither of these are heavy. I'm not feeling ever, I've already had half a glass, but like it's nice and delicious and it's not weighing me down. So great pick. Thank you for introducing me to this.
I'm glad you liked it. Yeah, that was my sort of entree into Sardinian wine when I discovered it. I was really like like you said, the price point and just it's just so different from anything that anything else you taste. Like I think with a red Canonau, my typical marker there's like an herbal, like a savory herbal kind of a thing that really comes through, and it complements like the best pairing I ever had with this wine was like a porchetta dish that a local Italian restaurant did. We did a wine dinner together, and it was mind blowing, like how the sort of the herbs in the porchetta sort of pulled out that herbal character of the Canonau, and they just worked together so well.
I love that. Well, it makes sense, you being a certified Italian wine ambassador. I thought that was like so interesting, and I've just been like dying to hear a little bit more about how you and Cindy connected and just how you decided to go down that route.
Sure. So Cindy met me, or I met Cindy. We met each other back when I was starting this endeavor. It's been probably just over 3 years now, or about that amount of time. We connected through Instagram, and
I love it.
And Cindy was looking to start something with respect to wine. She and I think, noodled some ideas together. I was trying to get this import business off the ground in the middle of a major global pandemic, which was really exciting. We did a few lives together, which were a lot of fun. We did a cooking live. We did a tasting and did a cooking demonstration. And that was a ton of fun. I'd love to do that again sometime if the opportunity ever presents itself. But I think two people that sort of have this I think where our sort of paths intersected is that we're bringing people into this world. You know, wine is a drink of the people. It's not something. It's not a drink of the sommeliers. It's when you visit the great wine regions of the world, this is something for people to get around the table and get together and celebrate with and enjoy and not be intimidated by. And that's not to say that the sommeliers play a very important role in obviously advancing wine, but you know what we're trying to do is really make, I think, make people feel like this is a world that they belong in, and it's a world that they can enjoy and have fun. And I think our missions intersect along those lines, and that was for me the reason I got into this business at all. You mentioned the Italian Wine Ambassador certification, so I did that 2 years ago. So this is coming from somebody who's technically trained as a chemical engineer. I spent 25 years in industry before I got into this. I started when I was like 13 years old, so that's why But anyway, so I had that technical training. But I will tell you the Certified Italian Wine Ambassador curriculum, and this is a program that's run by an outfit called Vinitaly International Academy. Vinitaly is the trade organization for wine in Italy. They do a very good job of promoting Italian wine. They have an educational arm called International Academy, run by Stevie Kim. She's amazing. She and her team are just incredible in what they're able to do. But their mission is to find people like me in the business who are on the front lines of telling people, bringing people into Italian wine. So it's a very intensive educational program. There's something like a 30% pass rate that goes along with the exam. And I got into the program to advance my knowledge, but also to advance my connections. And it was an amazing experience. I have two other people in our organization. They've both gone to Vinitaly International Academy. All three of us passed the exam the first time through. As far as I'm concerned, I will tell you D stands for diploma, because I barely got over that line, but I got over the line, and that was what was important. But the thrust of it was the top 100 Italian wine grapes, and the things that were sort of important with respect to those, not only tasting aroma characters, but also what are the important denominations, locations, soil types, climate types, where does it thrive, and then being able to describe the wines made from those grapes. So it was it was a really intense experience to prepare for, but just really grateful to those folks for everything that they do to advance the cause of Italian wine.
That's really cool. Yeah, Russ, I always try to look for kindred spirits, and this guy is very passionate about wine. And another thing I really respect about you is that you support the small producers, and you're really about the family story.
And we feel that's an important part of what we're bringing. And so, there are, as I've gotten into this business, one of the things that I've learned is that there are a lot of good wines out there that are looking for a home, and there are more good wines out there than can possibly be carried in the stores that we're in. And so what we feel like we really do well at is finding smaller producers. They're producing in the 50 to 100,000 bottle a year range, which sounds like a big number, but it's really not when it comes to the size of a business that you have. We have a few that are bigger than that, and we have a few that are smaller than that. And the sweet spot tends to be that 50 to 100,000 bottle a year range. But again, family producers, in most cases, in fact practically all cases, is that the family has been in the business of growing grapes for making wine since like the 1940s. Wow. And so what I found, like, for whatever reason, and all of these people started planting grapes to make wine in like the 1940s. And whether they started a winery at that time or they started a winery later, as is the case with the producer that I'm tasting this evening, they got into this. They've been growing grapes for wine for at least 3, if not 4 generations, and a few that I work with that have been even more than that. But I think what's special is that there's a story behind all of that. There is a responsible agriculture. There's a real respect for the land and what it brings, and like that's really a common denominator that you see among these producers is how seriously they take when it comes to taking care of their lands. And in fact, there was something that I read by one of the producers I work with today, which it was like, we don't inherit the lands that we have. We're caretakers for these lands for our children. And
Oh, wow.
so it's kind of like we're just at this point, and these lands will be here long after we are, and it's our responsibility to take care of these lands responsibly so that they're there for a long time to come afterward. And that's just it's a really beautiful perspective that there's just and it's shared amongst pretty much all of the producers that we work with, is that reverence for the land. That's what's really special for them, and they're passionate about it. They want you to learn about it. They would welcome you to their cantina if you got the opportunity to visit, and they just really want to tell you all about it.
I love that. And that makes so much sense of like your role then stepping into it. And I think that's, an area I always love learning more about in the wine industry. It's you're meeting these families, you're meeting these growers, you're meeting these wine producers. And then what's like, explain to us your role then in bringing that wine home for people. Like how do you connect the dots from the farms to the families with the kitchen tables ready to pour?
Sure. So there's two sides of so for Wide Roots, we have there's really two sides of our business. There's what I call the import side, and then the distribution side. And
Mhm.
here in Maryland and D.C., and we're soon to add Virginia, it's all one big happy family. But then there's a national presence that we look to build through our import side. So starting on the import, the highly technical part of being an importer is that you make an investment in wine inventory, you purchase it from the cellars, from the wineries, it's consolidated, put into an ocean freight container. That ocean freight container sails here to the U.S. We pull in through the port of Baltimore,
Okay.
and as the importer, I clear customs, and then we hold inventory here and then distribute it. But we also have responsibility for marketing, for building the brands, for promoting it, and making it become more widespread. So that's sort of the other side of being the importer, is the commercial side, is that we represent these families. We're not just here for the to technically clear it through customs and then have it show up, but we also have a responsibility to work with the producer to make people aware of those wines, and that they're out there, and that they're worth looking into. And then you go to the next tier, and so the distribution. So a lot of smaller importers like myself will also we do what's called self-distributing in our home, wherever where we're located. And so I self-distribute in Maryland and DC, and we're going to add Virginia. And as a distributor, now we're selling directly to retail stores, to restaurants, to bars, and then we provide the requisite support that goes along with that in terms of tastings, wine dinners. So we're trying to build those brands, make people aware of them, and then so there's a limit to where I can distribute, and that's because every state has its own laws around how it does. You have to get licensed in every state that you want to do business in. And here in Maryland, in fact, we have a control county in Montgomery County. And so a control county means the government gets into the business of buying and selling wine as a wholesaler. And so there are some states, Pennsylvania is a well-known one when it comes to this, where the state acts as a party, and then that's a whole other way of working. So here in Maryland, the vast majority of the state we can distribute directly to our customers. In Montgomery County, I sell to Montgomery County. Montgomery County sells to their stores, but also we're the ones that go get the orders from their stores, and we build the demand. The county basically buys product from us and then does the deliveries. So
Huh.
it's an interesting kind of arrangement. It's one of the things that really I think contributes to making the wine business pretty fragmented. And what you like, why can I only find this here and not in this other place? And it always comes back to reach. And
Okay.
so, we're and I'd like to get my products into as many states as possible. We're pretty young at this point, so right now I am in Maryland and DC. We're soon to pick up Virginia, and then I work through distribution in Illinois, Delaware, and Florida. And so we have products in those states as well that I work with other distributors to sell.
Okay, very neat. That's always been my big question. It's like, okay, so the importer brings it over, clears through customs, then turns it over to the distributor where you're either representing a few states and locations as wide routes, and then you work with other distributors in the states you've mentioned. Because that is always my question. When I was in Virginia, I found some wines I really loved. But then moving back to Georgia, I can't get them down here.
Right.
So I appreciate you kind of clearing through that explanation, because that's always, it. A lot of people ask me that question all the time, so now I'll just direct them to this episode.
Yeah, and what you found that one of the big reasons is like the Sella e Mosca Caronal that you have is I believe RNDC distributes that, Republic distributes that, if I'm not mistaken, but they're a big distributor across the country, so that you can
Okay.
find in a lot of different states. The product that I represent, you can find in the states that I represent, and a couple other states where the winemaker is working with a few other importers. But generally, when that wine comes from a smaller estate that is distributed and imported through a smaller importer distributor like us, the chances are it's likely going to be very limited in terms of where you can find it. At least, unless it just takes off as a brand to the point where everybody everywhere wants it. So, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I thought this was interesting. This is the one that I picked up.
Oh, Palmalis?
Pomalia?
Have you seen this, Russ?
I have not seen that one before. Pomalius.
This was, I bought this at a Total Wine because I'm working there part-time. And I thought it was interesting that Total Wine carried it. They have 3 different Cannonau's, and one is a Reserva, but they have these other 2. I think it's Freedom Distributors that does it for us.
Okay.
But I was surprised to find it there. I actually thought I was going to go have to search it out a bit more. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. I found with Total Wine that they have some really interesting selections, but there's also some places where they have, not a lot of regions represented in their selections too.
Right.
So, you may kind of find that when you go there sometime. But I'm not familiar with that particular one. I'm kind of curious to know where they're from, and maybe get over to see them the next time I'm in Sardinia.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Well, so that's a good question too. So you love Sardinia. That was one of the first places you were introduced to some of these wines, and your Italian passion just ignited from that. What are some of your other areas of focus? Like, how do you select your Italian connections to then bring back here to the States?
Sure. So at the moment we represent 22 producers. 20 are Italian, 2 are Spanish. As far as our Italian book, we represent 15 out of the 20 regions of Italy. So we're pretty well covered at this point in terms of at least the regions. I mean, there's so much in Italy that I could never possibly carry a comprehensive selection. I started in Italy for a couple reasons. One, I do love Italian wine. I think it's fascinating. There's a lot of amazing value out there for the price, and that's part of our philosophy too. Is that we try to bring things in that over deliver the quality for the price that you pay for them, and we think that pretty much everything in our book does that. But there's a lot of good value out there for people to find, and we want to help them turn on to that. The other thing that was happening when I started the business, this was just before the pandemic started, but the U.S. was in a trade war with Europe, and so there were tariffs against wines from Spain and France and Germany and England, but not Italy for whatever reason. And so I decided to focus on Italy in the beginning because so I didn't have to deal with that. The other thing is there are some logistical efficiencies that you have to manage, and so I bring in wine by the container load now, which means I have to fill 20 pallet spaces anytime I make a purchase. So
Oh,
if
wow.
I'm buying pallets from all over Europe, my transportation costs go up, so it really pays to be focused on a given area. What I can do as a wholesaler in Maryland is I can buy from other importers stateside. So we're adding to our book from other, and we're not going to be only Italy or only Italy with a few Spanish producers forever. That's who we are now. It's not who we'll be probably in 5 years. But we can add to our book by buying here in the U.S. from other importers, and that has some supply chain advantages and efficiencies as well. So, but yeah, I mean, our focus was on Italy for those reasons. I think there's a lot to it. There's a lot of good quality out there to be found, and you're trying to find that really well priced thing that maybe people don't know as much about, but then they taste it and they get turned on to it, and then the next thing you know, they become repeat buyers of that because they know the quality that they're going to get, they know how to find it, and they want that all the time. So yeah.
I love that. Well, that speaks even volumes to your wide roots, your wide, your wide range that you're going to be building upon within your portfolio. And I think that's fascinating too, because you mentioned when you got your certification that it was just on the top 100 grapes of Italy. Like that's the thing people like, I'm always learning of a new grape. I'm always learning of a new region. And I think that's really neat. And it just leaves it such opportunity for the future.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Wide Roots name. I mean, the concept behind that is that it comes back to celebration and shared humanity. And so, like, I thought about this because here in the U.S., we're descended from people from all over the world, and it's as many differences as we can have culturally or how we view the world. One thing that brings us all together is that we like to come home at the end of the day and be with our family or be with our friends, and we like to celebrate. And I think wine can be a facilitator of that. And that's as much of the good word that we're trying to get out as, why these wines are so amazing to drink is it's, no matter what, it's like, if you like what's in your glass or not. And you feel good when you're around people that you want to celebrate with, and you can, look back on the day that you had and just take it easy a little bit and celebrate. And that's kind of what life is really about. And it's what life is about when you go to the great wine producing regions. And so it's that culture, it's that feeling that's so important to what we do and why we do what we do.
I love that. Well, cheers to that. That was so well spoke because that is so true. I know. I was like, clink. That was perfect.
Well, I thank you so much for breaking that down for us because I think that's always kind of confusing for people as to how all that works. So thank you for that. And in a very easy to understand way. So I'm always looking for that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I think you did ask about how did I find these producers? So, as I said, there's a lot of good wine out there looking for a home. There were a few that I went out looking for, and there were a few that I just found that have been gems. And I know with a Canonal producer in Sardinia, I met Nicoletta from Aldaria at a trade tasting event in New York City just before the pandemic shut the world down. And she was one of the first producers that I worked with. We have a very special relationship. We started off with, when I first bought from Nicoletta, we had one mixed pallet that came in, and I'm now buying like 5 pallets at a time from her. And so it's just been really amazing to see people really resonate with the wines that she and her family produce.
I love that. So, kind of as we're wrapping this up, tell us more about like where we can find you, where we can find these wines that you're bringing in. Kind of what's your recommendations to following Wide Roots and Russ and your Italian story?
Best thing is
that's growing.
We are growing. We're trying to get into more and more places, but the best thing to do is follow us on Instagram. The Instagram handle is wide_roots LLC. And we do live tastings once a month. We have a wine of the month. This month we're doing Campanian white wines from a producer called Terra di Volter that we work with through another importer, but it's been a very successful product line of ours. So we like to make those fun and light, but also help people to learn and help make the whole thing more approachable. That's probably the best thing. If you go to our website, widerootsllc.com, you can sign up for our mailing list. There's a place on the right hand side of the page where you can do that, and you can keep up with us. We've carved out a pretty nice position here in Maryland. We're still growing in DC, and we're about to launch in Virginia. And as I said, we just started working the Chicago, Illinois market fairly heavily as we ramp up our distribution there. We've got a good partner in Delaware with Universal Beverage Imports that they're getting our products into locations around Wilmington, but also the beaches. And then our collaboration with Tuscany Wines Import in Florida, we're really starting to see, particularly our Sardinian wines, pick up in the Miami, Fort Lauderdale area with the work that our partner is doing there. So we did just get we've gotten reviewed by Dave McIntyre in the Washington Post for a few of our wines, and so we're really hoping that helps us get the word out, and he's been super good to us in terms of how he's perceived the wines that he's tasted from us, and so we're really grateful that he's kind of seen the quality that we have to offer.
I love that. Yeah, I'll have to look for those articles. And I think all those locations you mentioned are super fun when you're on vacation. And I would love to have this wine like sitting on the beach, no matter what time of the year that is. That's perfect. I will definitely keep an eye out whenever I go beach wine shopping.
Oh, for sure. Vermentino is like the ultimate beach wine. Vermentino with a plate of fried seafood.
Yes.
I mean, it's incredible. This rosé, I would say the same thing. The Canonal is something that can especially like I would say more so with the non-reservas, because the non-reservas are a little bit fuller body, but the Canonal that I have in my glass, I would pair with seafood or poultry, because I think it sort of has those characters where it's versatile enough to not trample all over those.
I love that. Yum. Well, I'm getting hungry again, so
I'm totally hungry.
Pour myself another glass and do all of what you just said.
Seriously.
Yeah, this was an excellent choice, Russ. I love this.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad everybody liked it. Yeah, it was a fun discovery for me, so hopefully other people can have the same experience discovering this as I had and you had as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Russ. I always love learning. I always learn way more than I think I would whenever you present to our group. So I can't thank you enough for joining in on one of our first podcast episodes. And I know I was teasing you earlier, but we'll definitely have you back because we've just skimmed the surface of this.
I'm happy to come back. So, yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity, and it's always fun to talk about this. So.
Thank you, Russ, and I appreciate you, my friend, and it's been so lovely to see you on your journey and these last couple of years and see you growing into this. It's been 3 years now, and like all this stuff that you've done and the stories you get to tell. I'm so happy for you. It's amazing.
I appreciate that. Thanks. Our story is a long way from being written at this point, and
I believe that.
There's some scary times, but man, I wouldn't change any of it for a minute. Like, it's just been such an amazing ride to be on that I don't regret any of it, and I'm super stoked to see what the future holds for us.
Amazing. Well, cheers to that. What a great way to close us out. Thank you all. Well, till our next pour, check
Yeah.
out Russ and Wide Roots. Can't wait to see what we serve next. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers, everyone.
Salute. Cheers. Grazie mille.